Right, again. Side to side, up and down. Fucking knuckles, baby. We're ready for this. We're live. Welcome to another episode of Inside CG. My name's Paul Mark D, and this is Coach Alex Pennyfather today joining us. Today we're talking about the game of boxing. From whether you're a general person coming through to wanting to become intermediate or even jumping in the ring one days. Today the subjects cover imposter syndrome, self-talk, self-doubt, delineation between general classes moving up to intermediate and advanced, even fighting one day, and most importantly, the hard truth. This is something you want to really listen to. This is a big thing versus the bullshit that ain't always true. Alex, how you going?
Great.
How's your weekend, mate?
Pretty good.
Yeah?
Saw the family, had
Very
a little
good.
bit of dinner.
Same?
A little bit of lunch. Yourself?
Yeah, family. All
Family.
saw two little one. He's obsessed with trains at the moment.
Trains.
Yes.
Don't mind me some trains.
Don't mind trains. Something about them.
Where'd you go?
I went to Bassendean. Had a dome. It's got an old carriage attached to it. It's sick.
Look, oh, didn't even know that was there.
Yeah. Alex, let's talk about boxing. You love boxing?
I like boxing.
What do you love most about boxing?
I don't know, just it's like the oldest form of combat sports. I've always been interested in it. I don't really know how to describe why I'm interested in it. Just ever since I was younger, watching boxing movies or just watching boxing fights, I've always thought it'd be the ultimate sport to do. And I've always played sport. I've always been interested. Even when I was like 14, I was begging to be able to go to a boxing gym, but my parents obviously said no because they're still worried about the brain, all the problems it can have with my brain and all the injuries I can get. But I was like, I played rugby for 10 odd years and I've been kneed in the head and had concussions. I understand that boxing is a little bit more than that, but I've always found boxing is just the ultimate sport to be able to play.
So you played rugby as a kid, right?
Yeah, for 10, 11 years.
Okay, I've got a question for you, especially for the parents that are watching or the parents that may be afraid of boxing for their kids. Have you been hit before in rugby?
Yes, many a time.
Rattled and
yeah,
knocked?
I've been kneed in the head going for a tackle and come off vomiting and not knowing where I was.
All right, next question. Did you see the hit coming?
Nah.
How many times would you say, percentage-wise, did you not see the hits coming?
In rugby, 95.
95% of the hits, so 5% you saw coming.
Yeah.
The thing is, boxing is the other way around, you see.
Yeah.
And this is one thing I've always thought to myself as well. And, I've got a lot of friends that are doctors and they did an AMA research recently. And, there's no doubt, head trauma is not great. But the thing is, when you can see the shots coming at you and it's in a controlled environment and you're looked after by a referee and you can, if you're just training for fun and fitness, it's like you can see what's coming.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Yeah. I also find boxing is like a beautiful sport. It's like obviously the science of hit and not get hit, like the sweet science, and people don't really understand it until they actually start to realize what's going on. Like I had people in my class the other day asking me what I saw when I was boxing. I saw them do this little thing or this little thing. It's all these little things that happen with a person's body and people just go, oh, I thought it was just two people in there trying to punch each other. And you're going, no, there's like little things that people do that you can see that actually help you be able to defend and dodge, just everything like that.
So those questions were people asking about, the tricks or anticipation of certain movements in boxing?
Yeah.
Mean, or?
So when I would come, because I'm quite come forward boxer, and it's like, how did you slip that? How could you see that was coming? And I was like, well, obviously he's a longer fighter. Obviously that jab's going to come more. And I have to constantly move my head off. And that's one thing I've worked on endlessly throughout boxing, is like constantly moving my head off the line and moving and being able to see when people are about to load up for a shot. So it's like little things like that. People that don't understand boxing don't see it. So I feel like people are unaware of the fact that people actually can see a punch coming, and it's not just two people going in there going balls to the wall trying to punch each other's head off.
Absolutely, yeah, it's a big thing. Both people are trained in what they're doing, and they're both aware of the risk, but also trained to evade and mitigate risk as well.
Yeah, exactly.
My question is, how long have you been boxing now, and what drew you to boxing at the very beginning?
It'd be about 5, maybe closing to 6 years, I think.
Okay, and so, let me rephrase that. And who was Alex before boxing? Let's talk about that.
I thought I was an athlete, and then I got a big shock when I came to boxing, because I played lacrosse for 6 years, played state lacrosse, I played rugby for a few different clubs, and I played a whole bunch of different sports. And then I came to boxing, and I first tried Muay Thai actually, and I enjoyed it, but then I tried boxing because I always wanted to do boxing, and then I went, actually I prefer boxing, because Connor Brazil was like, I can do this Muay Thai at Champions Gyms, you should come down to it. I was like, I've always wanted to, so I was like, yeah, I'll come down and do that.
What was the biggest rude shock for you?
There's a different level of fitness to combat sports. People say they're fit, and then I go, you're probably not boxing or fight fit. And people go, what does that even mean? I go, you just don't understand until you have felt that level of fitness. And that was the biggest shock to me, because I thought I was fit. Like I would run, I'd do rugby training, like I'd lift weights, I'd do everything. I was 95 kilos when I came in, and I fight down at 75, 80 kilos. Yeah. You don't realize how much weight you can lose and how much you can improve your aerobic system. Yeah. And it's a rude shock for boxing.
I still remember the first time you came in. For those that want a bit of a picture, he was, I think he was about 17?
16 or
16,
17.
17, young, curious kid coming through the doors, and I got the perception that you obviously were good at sport, but I think that you played a lot of team sports. Yeah. And I think one thing that boxing does is it reveals that it's a person, like it's a one-person sport.
Yeah, you can't hide.
You can't hide, right? And I've seen you transform from this young, kind of long-haired, a little bit out of shape, like you didn't really talk a lot, and it came across as a little bit smug, to this more dedicated, hungrier individual with a lot of clarity with what he's pursuing in life. Yeah. And like seeing that transition over the last 5 years has definitely been something that, for me, who used to coach you, but also lead you in, outside of the gym as well, to make better choices and better decisions and, improve your mindset, like it's made me very proud. Yeah. But the thing I wanted to ask you is, like, how long does it take, because you've stepped up from being a student to becoming a fighter to become a coach. How long does it take for someone to become good at boxing?
Honestly, you will never be as good as you want to be, but to be able to get to a good, competent level, I'd say at least 2 years, around 2 years, and another 2, and that's when I think people are starting to get ready to be able to fight, if that's their want. And if it's not, that's fine. There's no pressure to fight. But 2 years is where you start to see and feel different parts of your body. Whereas when I used to watch boxing videos of me back like a couple of years ago. I was going, wow, I did that wrong, that wrong, that wrong, that wrong, that wrong, and I'm going, wow. Now I see myself. I can still see that I do things wrong, obviously, but back then I just didn't realize that I was doing it. But now that I break it down and see, you start to realize you're not as good as you think you are, and then or for me, because I'm quite self-critical, I'm always thinking I'm not where I want to be yet. So always.
Would you say it's a humbling thing?
Yeah, for sure. We're like going. You're always learning. Like there's in life, but also boxing. It's like you're always learning new things, different things. Like I've had 2 coaches in the last 2 years, and one of them taught completely different to what the other taught. And I prefer what my new coaches taught me just because it suits me better. But my old coach taught me something else. And it's like, you just got to find a balance of what works for you and what doesn't. And there's always more to add on and more things to do. Like I'm still being introduced to new things by new coaches and all. So it is quite humbling to realise that you don't know as much as you think you do. Yeah,
and I think if we go back to that 2-year period that you just prescribed for someone, let's just make sure that we are clear with that 2-year process. Because if someone's doing 1 day a week or 1 session a week, let's put it into perspective using you for an example. How many days a week would you say you've put in over the last 5 years to get to where you are today?
I would have done 2 sessions for 6 days a week. When I was trying to get to a fight, it would have been 2 sessions a day, 6 days a week for about 18 months to get to a fight. But it was like on it, and it's going back to how you said that I was undisciplined and kind of thing. It was literally you that came up to me. I've told you this before, but it was you came up to me and said, you need to pull your finger out. And I respond a lot better to hard truths than to people like feeding my ego, like feeding me, telling me, oh, I'm doing the right thing and I'm doing this right, when I felt in my core that I wasn't. Yeah. And then you came up and it was just like a passing comment and you're like, just pull your finger out. And I went, far out. And that stuck with me. Like, it might have been like a little, something you didn't remember, but it was like a seed you planted in my brain. And I went, well, I need to grow up and actually start to realize that I need to work harder at this. And that's when I started training hard. And I literally went home that night and just set out a plan and set out a time sheet. And I worked and stuck to it for 18 months, as I said, so like 6 days a week.
So we'll get to that very shortly, the hard truth versus the bullshit that ain't the truth, essentially. And I think when we go back to the moment in time that you just talked about, like, one thing as a coach that is very important to remember when you see talent is to sometimes verbalize the talent you see. And sometimes having a picturesque, like, fairy tale ending for that person in the sport they're playing is important. The reason I say that is because there's been people throughout my career that have taken the time to share that with me. Because I think we as individuals, and we'll get to this shortly with the imposter syndrome, it's like you only believe you're able to do something unless someone changes your perspective on that. Yeah. You know, like, you think you can only go this far because your own self-belief. And, you know, we've all got that self-sabotaging, limiting belief to some degree, and I think we grow up with that.
Yeah.
And when I saw you, if I'm going to share this honestly with the people, you were drinking every weekend, you were showing up on Monday to try and train, you know, like, I get it, we're all young and we're young men and we want to get that out of our system, but the thing is, it's like you can't have both and do well in both. It's like you're training and you're trying to get fit and you're trying to get cardiovascular, like, supercharged and live this healthy lifestyle. Yeah. Meanwhile, you go out and you're putting this stuff in your body. Like, for me, when I was competing at your age, it was like, my body is a machine, it's a high performance machine. I want to give everything I can to give it the best chance. And essentially you weren't doing that. No. And that is something, like, when I see people in training in the clubs and I look at them and I'm like, man, you have a lot of potential. They look at me and they're like, he's just telling me because he has to, or, you know, he's feeding my ego. But the thing is, like, no, I don't give people compliments. And I think one thing, it's like, when I said to you, and it stood out to you obviously, it's like, you need to pull your fucking finger out. Yeah. Because you ain't going anywhere fast and you've got two paths. Choose one that are going to give you the best opportunity in future, because you've got years and years where you can do that later down the line. Right now you're young, you're fit, you're healthy, you know? So I think that's important for our listeners out there to be like, if you want to get good at boxing, focus on fucking boxing. Yeah. Stop thinking about how I can get there in a shortcut. Stop thinking about how I can watch a YouTube video to get me there quicker. Show up to fucking training. Yeah. Would you agree? Yeah, because I was like, after school I had no real direction. Like, I wanted to train boxing and do well in boxing, but in my head I was like, oh, I'm 18, I can just go out and drink and do whatever I want, like, I'll be fine. And I saw, like, other people at the gym do that and they kept fighting, and I was like, oh, maybe I should just be able to do it. But then I realised when you said that, I was like, I went 3.5 months without drinking and I lost 10, 12 kilos. Wow. And I was like, I just got to dedicate actual hard work and time to this. And people, like, don't see that happen. Like, they go, oh, wow, you're losing weight. And I'm going, I've bloody better be. I'm not drinking at all. I'm not doing anything bad. Like, my family joke about how I was like how grumpy all the time, but that's how I was when I lose weight. Like, I was in a deficit for so long, trying out all these different ways to lose weight. Obviously, not ridiculous ways, but different types of diets that work for me, that don't work for me. Throughout this whole process, now I've actually figured it out and I've kind of honed it down. And if I need to lose weight, I can lose weight. But yeah, it was I don't know. It was a big change for me. I still obviously go out and enjoy myself with my friends, but I'm 21. I enjoy hanging out with them and doing stuff, and like going out now and then. But it's like, I don't do it every weekend like I used to. Now it's like maybe once a month. Yeah, totally. And I think, like, as a young boxer or someone that wants to become good at boxing, like we're talking about, it's like when you choose to dedicate yourself and, like, apply yourself, of course you're going to develop and grow very quickly in that. Yeah. And when you said you saw other fighters who were fighting and drinking and you thought that that was something you could do yourself, Like, I'm not going to lie, I've seen many a great fighter. Like, they live between fight camps. So it's 12 to 8 to 12 weeks where they'll train their asses off. They get to the end, they fight. The next 3 days is a piss up. And the problem with that is, it's like, I used to sit there and look at it, I was like, yeah, I get it. You know, it's a lot of hardship and a lot of stress for the body. But what if we change the part where we drink and celebrate to, like, work and grow yourself? To be like, okay, instead of me going out and buy, like, you know, 3 days worth of drinks and recovering that time, what if I work on, you know, training, fighting, and then investing in myself and in my future? And, you know, like, I used to be a guy, like, if I didn't get the result, I'd go home and I'd beat myself up, and I was hard on myself. And it probably wasn't the healthiest relationship, but it was like, okay, cool, how can I make sure that if this 12-week to 12-week period is, I know it's fighting, in that week off, what am I going to do to make sure that, like, I give myself the next chance, best chance when I come back into fight camp? Or, you know, how do I invest in my mind and financially, like, instead of wasting on piss and alcohol and booze and hanging out with my mates, what can I do to further myself? Because what I was going to say, when you get to 34, where I'm at now, I look back and I was like, that went up like that. And if you piss it up the wall, a lot of the time, the fall from grace after boxing is a rude shock. Yeah. Depression, drugs, alcohol, all these other bad addictions. You chase the high, but your body can't keep up with chasing that high anymore. Yeah. So it's like, I always say to young boxers like yourself, do it now while you're young, because one day when you're my age, you're going to regret it otherwise, and it's going to play out in other ways, which is never healthy. We're all primitively designed to hunt and chase things that we want, and your body will no longer be able to keep up in a young man's sport. Yeah. So next subject, Alex, imposter syndrome. Let's talk a little bit about how you suffered from that. And you can, like, I can totally relate and been through it myself, but talk about your imposter syndrome.
Oh, it's like, when you, for coaching especially, going into the coaching role more so than...
Let's talk about your fighting imposter syndrome. Alex is an imposter.
It's, you can get, I don't really know how to put it into words, but I felt like I didn't belong at times fighting, because sometimes I thought, you know, as you said, I've always played team sports, and I've gone, well, maybe I did well because I could hide and then I could shine for a little bit, or I could just hide in the background if I wasn't doing well. But when you're boxing, you can't hide, and I've always felt like I shouldn't be in the spotlight all the time, and I felt like I wasn't right for the sport.
Why?
Just from losing boxing matches, like, it honestly, it plays with your mind. I have people talk to me about it, and I go, I know it sucks, but honestly, you just gotta take it and move on, because it affects me for about a few days, and I obviously don't like talking to people about it. But then once those couple of days have gone and I've had time to sit on it and let myself think about it, I can get back to it. But it's always in there, so you always feel like if something comes up, you still feel like you got a little bit of imposter syndrome, and that just translated into coaching as well. Going, am I ready? Am I ready to do this?
On that, I still remember the first time I asked you why you wanted to coach, and you said, look, I've suffered many a setback in my career as a fighter, and one thing I want to be is a coach that I never had myself. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Does it still stand by you?
Yeah, I still wanted to help people that, like, I see people lose and I go, it's not as bad as you think it is. Like, from the outside looking in, I go, it's right. There's so many more opportunities to keep going, keep fighting. Like, you can't, especially in amateur boxing, because it's where you learn how to fight. Yeah. Like, your first few fights, even in Muay Thai, when you have all the padding on, like, that's where you learn. It's not the end. Especially, and going back to amateur boxing, you can do your amateur boxing career, and then I've seen people do it. They've had 10 losses and maybe 1 win, and then they go pro and they go undefeated for something like 20 fights, and you go, you can't really, you can't let it hold you back and hold you down, because it's just not something that will benefit you at all. So you just have to keep moving forward after these setbacks, because you can take a day or two to think about it, get it through your system. But then I always tell people, just rock up on that week, like Monday or Tuesday, and just get back to training, because the longer you let it sit with you, because I used to do it as well. The longer you let it sit with you, the worse you feel. Like I used to feel like I didn't feel right in my skin coming back to the gym sometimes. I was like, I don't want to come back. And I told my old coach this as well. He was like, just turn up. And I just turned up, and it was nowhere near as bad as you think it is.
One of the biggest tragedies I've always said as a coach is when it's not when people lose, it's when people give up on themselves.
Yeah.
Because if you do it in your competitive, like your fighting game, the chances are you're going to give up in other areas of your life. I'm a big believer of that.
Yeah.
Because if you have that short circuit, it'll go off in other areas of your life. Big believer of that. So, you know, fighting is a game. You lose one game, how are you coming back? You know, the old, it's not how hard you hit, it's how hard you get hit and keep moving. It's exactly that.
Yeah.
So give us some of the tips that you use to overcome imposter syndrome.
Well, one is the incantations you told me to write out.
If you don't mind sharing, what are yours?
Mine's my hard work will pay off, and it beats people's talent. It's a long one, but that's one. Another one is I'm a beast in the ring. Another is, I haven't read them today actually. I'm a nice person. I leave a good impact on people. That's what it was. I am a nice person, and that's what it's meant to be. And a couple others that I haven't read today, but I've changed them up a little bit.
Yeah, of course, they're always changing. One thing with incantations, I've had students where I've coached them to try to develop their own set, and they ask me, they say, why should I do this? I say, okay, cool. If we talk to ourselves in a negative way, which obviously your incantation in a positive way.
Yeah.
Like if I share my own, like I used to think to myself, you know, I'm not the biggest, I'm not the strongest, I'm not the fittest, I'm not the most talented, and I'm not worthy. It's like, how does that set your day up as opposed to the way you just talked about?
Yeah.
And it makes a big difference for the psychology. It's your self-talk.
Yeah.
And your self-sabotage. And if you're someone that constantly gets a flat tire and slashes the other three, it's like, is that really a positive behaviour to give yourself the best chance of success?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, so incantations is one. What else is there that you would say has helped you with your imposter syndrome? What's the most recent one that I asked you to do when you said, I don't feel like I'm ready for this? It's a really important one, especially for the people watching and listening. The journal.
Oh yeah, the journal. I write down all the training I've done, like
on a daily basis?
Daily
How many
basis.
weeks?
Yeah, I did 6 weeks on a daily basis. And I wrote it down. In my head I was like, I'm not ready to get back in. And I wrote it down and read it, and I went, wow, I've missed 3, 4, 5 days in 6 weeks of training. And I've done something like over like 60 kilometres of running, maybe even more. And then I've done, it actually would have been like 12 Ks a week at least.
Wow.
And then I've done a ridiculous amount of bag and pad rounds, and even more sparring than I thought I did. It's just like, if you think about it, you don't really believe it, and then until you see it on paper and realise how hard you've actually worked. So it's like,
do you have any other pointers for people? You've got your incantations, your positive self-talk you read every morning. You've got your training journal, which actually outlines the hard work you've done to this point. Do you have any others? I've got one I'm going to share if you don't have one.
there we go.
The biggest one for me is being coachable. So what that means is not just like taking instruction and applying it. It's like opening up to go to people or your coaches or your mentors to say, I'm not good with this, or I'm currently feeling this, or I need help with this. Instead of, I've got this sorted, and you just kind of fall into a heap and you withdraw yourself completely. Being coachable is so important, especially when you have imposter syndrome, because it's like having a flaw, but you're too proud to admit that you actually have it. And what that causes is a defense mechanism to inflate your ego, or, you know, kind of fob people off that are there to help. And long term, that plays off in other areas as well. You know what I mean? Like, it's been the biggest thing. Like, I've had to work on it myself and admit some of my deepest, darkest insecurities and fears, to the point where, like, I'm in tears, man. Like, I'm sobbing. And I've got off the calls with my mentor where he told me, you fucking asshole, because, like, it was so hard for me to let my ego down, to the point where it was like, I actually need some help with this. Otherwise, I'm never going to get better. And I reached that ceiling where it's like, I'm standing there looking around going, I'm right. So far from the truth. You know?
Yeah, yeah. Talking about it, that has helped a lot. Like, even just having like an hour conversation with you here and there. Like, I've gone, wow, I'm not the only one. Realizing that you're not the only one that has felt these feelings is like was probably the biggest takeaway for me. Like even people that have had 40 fights, have won pretty much most of them, and now coaching and them still feeling imposter syndrome, and I'm going, wow, okay, so it's not just me. Like I don't have to always feel this way and feel like it's a bad thing to feel that way.
Yeah.
It's a lot very helpful seeing people actually talk about it and you realizing that you're not the only one.
Yeah. So your incantations, your journal, or your recognition of the hard work you've done, and then thirdly being coachable, based upon how to overcome imposter syndrome. Next subject, wanted to ask you, like dealing with nerves and anxiety. This is a big thing because fighting is very violent and it's very volatile and it's very fast paced and it's very revealing. You can't hide, like we talked about before. But how are some of the things what are things that you notice of people when you're coaching with the nerves and anxiety, and what are some of the tips that you could give them so that they can apply that for themselves in their own game, especially developing in boxing?
Yeah. Well, my main thing is like, I know I can be quite serious when I'm training, and I can tell there are some people that get pretty serious, but most of the time they're quite happy people. That's when you know they're actually feeling the nerves and they're feeling the pressure of it. And I just like try and make them laugh or smile and just say, and just reinforce that they're ready, they've done the hard work. Like I tell the people I want to fight to send me their runs, their extras, all this stuff. Like I tell them to send it into this group that I've got, and that way if they go, oh, I don't feel like I'm ready, I go, well, if you've done the runs and you've done all the extras that I've told you to do, you're ready. Like it's what I do, it's what Coach Jude does, is what other fighters do.
Right?
It's just knowing, it's just being able to see it, and people, I feel it's just trying to keep them, I don't know, calm and light rather than get into this overwhelming fear of nervousness.
Yeah.
Like I get it as well. I get nervous as well. Like the week of a fight, I'm not someone you really want to beat around, because like I'm cutting my weight down a bit. My nerves are starting to kick in, and it's like that's why I really enjoy coaching during fight week, because it just gives me that time to actually like take my mind off it and just work. It's like do something I really enjoy doing, rather than sitting around going, oh my God, I'm getting into the ring this weekend. And you always have those like adrenaline dumps throughout the week, and it's like nervousness, but it's part of the I kind of enjoy it, because I've never really felt those kind of nerves in another sport. It's like a bit of an adrenaline, it's like a weird adrenaline rush, and you go, and you might just see me sometimes at home, I just like jump up and start shadow boxing in the middle of the room. Like I'll be watching TV and you'll just see me jump up and start punching, shadow boxing, and my dad's like, what is going on? But it's just how I deal with it, is like visualization as well. Yeah. Just thinking of possible outcomes that might come across, and think about the things that you've worked on in class. That's like my big thing, is visualization of possible outcomes, because you can do all the hard work, but if you can't put it into practice and like see where it's needed to be used, then it's you're just not doing it for any reason. So it's like visualizing, I know, can make people nervous, but it's the best way to prepare yourself mentally for seeing it.
On that, I do agree. People do get nervous with visualization, because I've done it myself, and like I think one thing that people obviously get nervous about is the fact that they're afraid of the outcome based upon the hard work that comes before it. And you talked about nerves before. I think one thing that is important, I remind people, especially when they're in martial arts, is like, and there's an important upcoming event, it's like, don't mistake your nerves for excitement, because the human brain doesn't know the difference sometimes, and a lot of the time when people are excited, they feel nervous, or they feel they're nervous and excited. I'm like, it's a good thing to feel nervous, because that is a fight or flight response kicking in, and it's going to push you to be your best. And just on the visualization thing, I think one thing that, if I can share my own experiences, is like, I used to think to myself, okay, visualize my hand being raised at the end of a fight. Or more importantly, what were some of the feelings and emotions that I was going to feel following the result of winning? And I think that is far more powerful, because that is how you kind of fuel yourself or spark yourself up to rise to the occasion, because you're like, shit, I can't wait to go out and have a meal of pizza with my friends and, you know, play video games when I'm done, and, you know, not have to go to training for a couple of days because I want to win so bad. And I want to like look back in photos of me winning and feel winning feeling, you know. Yeah. And that just pushes people that little bit more and ignites that visualization of winning and the feeling after. Yeah. And it gets the chemicals flowing, and it gets you just the adrenaline right at the right times.
Yeah. That nerves and excitement thing, there's that Simon Sinek video, and I always send it to like fighters if they're feeling nervous. And it's just because how the high level athletes always control it is saying they're excited because it's the same physical responses.
And on that word control you just used, that's one big thing I would say that is really important for people that get nervous and anxious about like boxing or a big test coming up. Thinking about it, like, one thing I see people do a lot of is like, how am I going to perform? Am I going to do when that person throws a punch at me? Or what am I going to do when I get in that ring? I think one thing that's really important for people to conserve their energy and their nerves and their anxiety is blocking. Mental blocking is really important. How do you block? Well, I think one thing is like focusing on your breathing. So like, my dad was a very serious Buddhist. He still is a religious man. And one thing he taught us as kids was breathing and meditation, because he loves that. Like, one thing, heavily religious, I didn't always agree with as a kid, you know, you're doing all these things, but one thing I'm really grateful for is the fact that he taught us meditation. Because what that causes is you focus on your breathing in and your breathing out, and you're controlling the speed of your breath. And what that allows you to do is, when you're thinking about that, it allows you to block out the rest. And this I always say to fighters on fight day, or people heading into a big test, or like just like a big interview or a big opportunity, a big presentation, talking in front of people. It's like, just be your best.
Yeah.
Don't worry about everything else. Don't overthink it. If you overthink it, you're going to create too many scenarios. You have practiced and put too many hours in to get the outcome and not be able to act accordingly.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome, man. So let's talk about like styles of coaching, especially when people come in, you know, they're doing a general fitness class, they want to have some fun, get some results, versus when they progress and level themselves up into intermediate and advanced. Yeah. Those styles of coaching, especially from your point of view as a coach, how does that change? So, and what's the impact that have on people?
Well, obviously, I try my hardest to be as nice as I can in the general and boxing fitness classes. I'm obviously I can be seen as quite a serious person, and I don't have like a lot of expression in my voice. So I can seem like I'm trying to be mean, but I'm not actually being mean. It's just the way I am, and I'm actually trying to be nice. But yeah, I try and more give feedback, but try and lift people up more in boxing fitness and general boxing, because they're there to have fun. They're there to learn a new thing and just enjoy learning something new, rather than, whereas I'm a little bit harder, a bit meaner, not meaner, but just a little bit harder when people want to progress and go into intermediate advanced class.
Why? Tell me that. Because some people don't understand that. They see a mismatch with the personality they get when they show up to the two different types of classes. And you can ask me why I do with mine, because I'm the same as you. Yeah. But why do you do it?
I guess personally, I've always responded better to hard truths. Yeah. And I feel like some people might not respond as well to it as I do, and I think I have to find that balance. But I'm not there to tell you how amazingly you're doing. I'm there to tell you how you can be better. So it's not really a personal attack on them. It's just more, I want them to progress faster than me giving them some love and more love, and then something actually helpful. Yeah. It's just the helpful thing straight away, and it might come across a little bit harsher, a little bit more confronting than it did in the general classes. But it just comes direct, rather than with a whole bunch of love around it. Yeah. So it's not wrapped up in pretty stuff.
Not wrapped up in bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree, and I totally dig it, man. It's one of those things, isn't it? General classes, fitness, you're there for fun, you're there to see if you like that, and you see if you do want to delve deeper and progress in that. But the thing is, when people come to intermediate, I believe, as a coach, is that people want to take it more seriously. They want to find out the real raw side of what they're doing.
Yeah.
And the truth, and what I say is to many a fighter in the past, or many intermediate advanced boxer especially, people that are leveling up, I tell them, you're going to get your head taken off. This is a fight sport. You are going to get hurt. You are going to get fucked up. You can either choose to get fucked up here in the gym, and I'm going to tell you where you need to improve, or you can go up in the ring in front of hundreds, even thousands of people and get your head punched in. But my responsibility as a coach is to make sure you're ready.
Yeah, exactly.
And sometimes you're not going to be ready, and I'm going to tell you. And I think that's so important, because that's the next subject I was going to ask, is hard truth versus bullshit that ain't the truth. Because I've seen many a coach in the past struggle to delineate between general and fitness classes and having fun as those people progress, not changing their tone and reminding the people of the hard truth of what they're getting themselves into, and people get seriously hurt. Yeah. So tell us some of the hard truths versus the bullshit that ain't the truth.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I'm not a big fan of when I would go to like a advanced class and then it would just be like a little bit of fun here and there. I even had a talk with my advanced class the other day. I went, I don't want bad body language in class. I don't want you to cry to me if I match you up against someone that's a little bit harder in sparring. I want you to be confident. I want you to work harder. And if you're not going to do that, don't expect me to put you in the ring. Like, I won't put you in the ring if you can't show me that you if you can't show me that you're going to tough through something that might come. Because a big storm might come in a fight and you can't just, I'm not going to bail you out just because, well, maybe I might have to, but I don't want to have to bail you out because you're not able to grit down and actually go hard. So there are going to be tests in boxing, and the further you get in, the further you move along, the harder I'm going to be on you, because it's as much as it is a great sport, it's not, it's fighting. Someone's in there to hit you. Someone's in there to punch you in the face, to try and knock you out a lot of the time. So it's not going to be, I'm not going to be like, oh, it's all good. It's all fine if you can't move your head. It's fine if you keep getting hit in the face in sparring. This is all good, all well and good. I'm going to go, you need to stop. You need to start doing these things right away, because if you don't, I'm never going to put you into a fight. I'm going to have to pull you out of sparring, because it's a safety risk for you. Like if I keep letting you go in and you're just lifting your chin up and not actually moving your head or defending punches, I can't safely put you in, even in sparring or even in the ring. People don't realize that it's actually, as beautiful of a sport it is, it's someone's there to hit you and knock you out, and it's still super dangerous, and the bad things can still happen in the ring. People just have to realize that. I won't, as the harder it gets, the meaner and tougher I will be on you.
And on that, I think some people receive it, there's different types of people that will receive it really well, and they admire that you're so honest, and they really appreciate it, and that you're putting their safety and well-being at the forefront of what they're doing. And then there's other people that can't stand it. Like I've had many people throughout the years, like I'm for some people and I'm not for other people, and I'm okay with that. Because otherwise, like these people do find themselves in a position where they do get hurt. And when it comes to being a championship fighter, things that I've always looked for in people is courage, bravery, hard work. Sportsmanship is a big thing as well. And being a good leader to show the other people that may be watching them that they would be someone they would like to aspire to. That's so important. That saying, like the All Blacks, they say, plant seeds to trees you'll never see is so important. I am the product of all the people that I saw, and I would hope that when I was fighting, people saw me and they became a product of me. And then obviously that is the same with fighters we put in the ring as well. So important. Alex, has been a bit of a deep one today, and I really appreciate the transparency and the openness that you've given. I hope that our viewers and our listeners can get a lot of value from what we've talked about here, especially when it comes to imposter syndrome, dealing with nerves and anxiety, styles of coaches, and hard truth versus bullshit that ain't always true. Is there anything you want to add, or what is your vision for the future of your team?
I really want to put a bigger dent in WA boxing, really. Amateur level, because it's, in my opinion, the amateur level in WA is above the pro level. So I really would like to push the boxing team to make an impact in the WA boxing scene. But then once they're ready, obviously, if we can, and if people are dedicated enough, I'd like to move them up to pro and get them fighting around Australia and maybe in the world, but that's still in the future. But it'll be awesome to be able to do that and see where it takes us.
Awesome, my man. Thank you so much for your time today. I hope you've all enjoyed this episode of Inside CG with Coach Alex Pennyfather. My name is Pamon Marti. Be sure to comment or be sure to shoot us a DM with if you'd like to hear some different sort of content or inside the minds of some of the great coaches we have, even the fighters and even some of the members. We'd love to be able to share it with you. Thanks for listening and thanks for watching.